Dr. Ethan Cole was deep in a restless sleep when the hospital pager exploded into a shrill wail. He jolted upright, chest heaving, eyes scanning the dim light of the on-call room at Seattle General Hospital. His heartbeat hadn't even settled before the red light on the wall phone started blinking. Groggy, still halfway caught between a surgical dream and reality, he reached for the receiver. "Cole here." A nurse's voice crackled through, sharp and urgent. "Dr. Cole, emergency cesarean. Room 4. Patient's name is Emily Parker, 28 years old. Severe preeclampsia. BP's at 190/120. Fetal distress detected.
OB is requesting you now."
He didn't answer. The line went dead. In an instant, he was on his feet. Lab coat over scrubs. ID badge. Gloves in pocket. The corridor outside was soaked in sterile light and muffled footsteps.
Night shift buzzed in focus.
Nurses rolled carts, whispered orders, doors hissed open and shut. He moved fast. Room 4 was chaos. Monitors beeped erratically. A small team was already prepping Emily. Her face was pale, forehead glistening. She looked barely awake. Panic hovered in her half-lidded eyes. Ethan approached, checking the monitor. BP's climbing. "We need to go in now," said Dr. Rosen, the attending OB.
Chibarelli glanced up. "Inidior en 10, Ethan."
Emily reached for Ethan's sleeve. Her grip was weak but urgent. "Please, save my baby," she whispered. Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "You both will be fine. I promise." She closed her eyes. Within seconds, the anesthesiologist administered the spinal. Her breathing slowed.
The surgical curtain rose.
Ethan scrubbed in, gloved up, stepped beside Rosen, and began. The cut was clean, the incision deep. Blood pressure still spiked. The team moved like a well-oiled machine, silent except for commands. When Rosen reached for the infant, Ethan was there to assist. But something was off. There was no sound. No cry. No gasp. Ethan's hands trembled as he lifted the newborn from the womb, tiny, damp, pink, and deathly still. "Clamp and cut," Rosen ordered, her voice suddenly tight. The umbilical cord was severed. A nurse took the infant, quickly clearing the airways, suctioning fluid, tapping gently.
Still nothing.
No cry. No breath. The NICU team began immediate resuscitation. Oxygen. Gentle chest rubs.
Tactile stimulation. Silence.
Ethan watched, frozen. And then, the infant opened her eyes.
Not in confusion. Not in instinct.
But with clarity.
Deep, obsidian eyes.
Wide, focused. As if already understanding. The room stilled. One nurse gasped, backing away. "I think she's looking at me," the nurse muttered, her voice shaking. Ethan moved closer, staring into those impossible eyes. They weren't the blank stare of a newborn. They were watching him. Through him. And then, she moved her lips. No one could believe it. But they all heard.
The smallest whisper.
A breath more than a word. But distinct. Home.
Ethan's blood ran cold.
"What did she say?" someone asked. No one answered. They couldn't. They were paralyzed. She spoke," another whispered.
Rosen broke the silence. Monitor vital. Run à full neuro.
"And no one says a word about this outside this room." Understood. The room nodded as one. Ethan remained still, eyes fixed on the babies. He had delivered hundreds of children in his career. None had ever looked at him like this. None had ever spoken. Later, in the neonatal intensive care unit, the infant lay in a glass bassinet under warm lights, wrapped in soft cotton, monitors beeping rhythmically. She had not cried once. She did not sleep. Nurses noted it. Ethan noted it. Her gaze followed motion. Her hands flexed with awareness. Not the spasms of instinct, but purpose. He reviewed her scans again and again.
No signe of distre.
No neural abnormality. No physical defect. But something was wrong. Or beyond explanation. He sat beside her late into the night, staring through the glass. Her eyes remained open. Unblinking. He whispered to her.
Who are you?
No answer.
Only silence.
But Ethan had a strange feeling she understood the question. And somewhere in the hospital's deepest archives, someone else had noticed her file. And was already watching. By morning, word had spread among the night shift nurses, though no one dared speak of it above a whisper. The baby who didn't cry, they called her. Not in fear. Not yet.
Just curiosity, t'englade inunise.
Dr. Ethan Cole sat with the newborn's chart in front of him, the medical records crisp, the vitals unervingly perfect. Temperature, oxygen levels, heart rate, all stable. Brain scan?
Normal. Réflexe test?
Present, but subdued. Yet, none of it explained what he had seen. What they all had seen. Ethan, a soft voice called behind him. He turned. It was Marissa Lang, head NICU nurse, someone he trusted, someone who'd seen it all. She still hasn't cried. Or slept. Ethan rose to his feet.
Vital. Steady à Ever.
But she's watching everything.
She tracks light, sound, motion.
I waved my hand and her eyes followed. That shouldn't happen for weeks. Ethan frowned. And Emily? Recovering well.
She's asking for you.
Ethan nodded, pressing the chart to his chest.
Keep monitoring her. Let me know if anything change.
He made his way down the hall to recovery room 307. Emily Parker was propped up on pillows, pale but conscious, hair still damp from sweat, eyes sunken but aware. She looked up as he entered. Dr. Cole. He smiled gently. Emily.
How are you feeling?
Tired.
Like I will run a marathon with my brain.
She paused. Is she okay?
Ethan stepped closer.
Physically, she's perfectly healthy. But, he hesitated, unsure how to proceed. She hasn't cried. Or slept. At all. She's different.
Emily's expression changed.
Not to fear, but recognition. I thought I imagined it, she said softly.
Ethan sat beside. Imagined what?
In the ore. When I was going under, just before everything went black. I heard a voice.
A tiny whisper.
Ethan stiffened. She said, I've come back. I thought it was the drugs. But when I saw her, when I looked in her eyes, I knew it wasn't my imagination. Ethan remained quiet for a moment, the silence between them thick with something more than disbelief. She spoke, he said finally. Emily looked up, startled. In the operating room. After she was born. She said one word. What? Home.
Emilie s'engripped the sheet.
That's what I used to say to her. When I was pregnant.
At night, Ide whisper, come home soon.
I don't know why I said it. It just felt right. Neither of them said anything for a long time. Outside the window, morning sunlight cut through a layer of fog. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. Have you ever been involved in any research programs, trials, anything that might have done something? Changed something?
Emily blinked, confused.
No. I mean, I interned for a year in Colorado, at a neuroscience facility.
Mostly admin work.
Filing, scheduling. Which facility? She paused.
Walker Institute. Ethan froze.
The name echoed like a bell in his mind.
Walker Institute. Dr. Adrian Walker.
The man who died in a lab fire 5 years ago, taking his 10-year-old daughter with him. What exactly did the institute research? He asked carefully.
Advanced cognition. Memory transfer.
There were rumors, but I was just a temp. I barely even saw Dr. Walker. He was quiet. Kept to himself. Then the fire happened. The whole place was shut down.
Ethan stood slowly, a chill running down his spine.
Why? Emily asked, voice rising.
Why are you asking me this? What are you thinking?
He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he left the room, walking quickly back to the NICU. Luna was awake. Still. Her eyes locked onto his as he entered. There was something deeper now, something that unsettled him. Recognition. Not the way a baby recognizes a caregiver's voice. This was something else. A memory that wasn't his reflected in her gaze. He reached for his phone and called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Sarah? It's Ethan. A pause. Well, that's a name I haven't heard since med school.
In idiot. There's something happening here.
Something I don't understand. And I think you might.
Silence on the other end, then. Where are you? Seattle General. I'm on my way.
He hung up. Outside the NICU glass, the hospital bustled with morning chaos. Patients, nurses, gurneys rolling down long white corridors. But inside, the world narrowed.
Just one baby.
One word.
One impossible mystery.
That night, Ethan stayed late. He watched as Luna followed the motion of a dangling mobile above her crib with precision. He placed a flashlight across the room and turned it on and off. Her eyes tracked it perfectly. Then, he tried something different. He pulled a small Bluetooth speaker from his bag. Played a soft piano lullaby. Something his mother used to play.
A song called Evening Light.
He watched her closely. Her eyes shifted. Her breathing slowed. And for the first time, her eyelids dropped. She was sleeping. Not deeply.
Not for long.
But it was sleep. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Then he noticed her hand twitch.
Tiny finger moving in rhythm.
Like she was playing the keys to the song in her dream. He leaned in, unsure if it was coincidence, a trick of the eye.
And then Luna whispered again.
Just one word.
Adrian. Ethan Staggeredbach. The name of the dead scientist.
The man who died in the fire. The father.
The world tilted.
And Ethan realized, he wasn't witnessing a medical anomaly. He was standing at the edge of something no one had ever truly seen. A rebirth. A return. And the beginning of a story far stranger than science could explain. When Dr. Sarah Montgomery arrived at Seattle General the next morning, the sky was still a dull gray, mist clinging to the hospital's glass facade like a shroud. She walked through the main lobby with a purpose Ethan hadn't seen in years. Her long brown hair was pulled into a practical bun, and a leather satchel bounced at her hip. Sarah had always been more psychologist than physician, more intuitive than empirical, but that was exactly what Ethan needed. They greeted each other with a brief hug in his office, though the tension in the room made warmth difficult. You didn't say much on the phone, she said, settling into a chair across from him. I didn't know how to, Ethan admitted. What I'm about to tell you, you'll probably think I've lost it. Sarah leaned back, arms crossed. Try me. He recounted everything.
The silent birth. The word home. The child's open eyes.
Her refusal to sleep or cry.
The whispered name, Adrian.
Sarah's expression changed from curiosity to calculation. You said the mother interned at the Walker Institute? Yes. Do you know what they were working on before the fire? Only rumors.
Memory transfer. Neural imprinting.
Consciousness models. Sarah nodded. I read about it in a few fringe neuroscience journals. Walker was obsessed with the idea that memory wasn't just stored in the brain, but in a broader energetic field. He believed memory could be captured like a waveform, encoded and transferred. To another brain? To another body, she corrected. Or at least, to the developing neural pathways of a fetus. Ethan didn't speak for a moment.
So you think?
I think we may be looking at the first successful imprint. They moved to the NICU. Sarah stood outside Luna's glass crib for several minutes before entering. Luna was awake, of course. Her eyes locked onto Sarah the moment she stepped inside. It wasn't a glance, it was a recognition.
Hello, little one, Sarah murmured, crouching to eye level. Let's see what you're reading.
She pulled a small penlight from her pocket and flashed it across Luna's eyes. The baby followed it with uncanny precision, her pupils contracting perfectly with every movement. Not just reflexive, but focused. Sarah tapped lightly on the crib's railing in a specific rhythm, 2 short, 1 long.
Luna blinked.
Then her tiny hand lifted, and she tapped back. 1 short, 1 long. Sarah froze. She's mimicking, Ethan said, stunned.
No, Sarah whispered.
She's responding.
That is Morse.
Ethan stared. That's not possible. Neither was speaking at birth, she countered. They spent the next hour conducting rudimentary tests. When music played, Luna reacted emotionally. Classical pieces made her still. Dissonant tones made her frown. Sarah even noticed that Luna turned away from high frequencies, something only seen in older children with developed hearing. But more than the data, it was the feeling in the room. Luna didn't behave like an infant. She observed, measured, listened. And occasionally, she would mouth silent words.
Note babbling.
Words. I think she's trying to communicate, Sarah said at last. To say what?
Sarah hésita-t-elle.
To tell us who she is. That evening, Ethan returned to his apartment, exhausted. The city outside his window was soaked in drizzle, headlights blurring into long streaks of white and red. He poured himself a glass of water and sat on the couch, staring into nothing.
Où are you, Luna?
He pulled open his laptop and began searching. Old articles. Archived forum threads.
Obscure interview.
Anything related to Dr. Adrian Walker. There wasn't much. The man had been brilliant, but private. Rumors swirled after the fire, that he had been close to something revolutionary, something dangerous. The lab was deemed an accident. Files lost.
Nos survivors.
Except Ethan found something.
À comment on en all neurosciences blog.
Dated 4 months before the fire. It read, if the host cannot survive the upload, the data must be stored elsewhere. Even in the womb, consciousness can travel. No username. Just AW. He shut the laptop. The next day, security reported something strange. Surveillance footage from the NICU hallway showed a man standing at the end of the corridor around 3 a.m. No one recognized him. He didn't enter. Didn't move.
Just stood, staring through the glass at Luna.
Then he vanished. When Ethan reviewed the footage, his heart sank. The man was tall, wearing a black coat, face mostly in shadow. But there was something chilling in the stillness of him. Not threatening but watchful. Waiting. He forwarded the footage to hospital security. But privately, he sent it to Sarah as well. That's not just a visitor, she said, calling him immediately. That's someone who knows.
Knows what? Knows what Luna is.
Or who she is. Ethan made a decision. We need to move her.
Sarah blinked.
Where?
In à place outside the city. Afrien owns a cabin in the woods.
Off-grid.
No hospital file, no internet.
If someone's tracking her, it's not through official channels. Sarah didn't hesitate.
I'm coming with you.
Ethan returned to the hospital with a forged transfer order, signed under a fictitious pediatric research program. Emily didn't ask questions. She only wanted to stay with her child. That night, under cover of rain, they left Seattle General. Ethan drove, Sarah beside him, and Emily in the back seat with Luna swaddled in her arms. The baby stared silently through the rear window, eyes wide open even in the dark. As they merged onto the interstate heading east, Ethan glanced at Sarah. You think we're doing the right thing? Sarah didn't answer right away. Then she looked into the rearview mirror at the child in the back. I think we're already part of something much bigger than us. Right or wrong won't matter soon. Outside, the highway stretched on beneath a sky that refused to brighten. And somewhere behind them, a presence was following. Not fast. Not loud. But inevitable. The road to East Wenatchee curved along cliffs and valleys, lined with pine trees bowed under gray skies. The air grew colder as the car climbed higher into the hills. Ethan kept his hands tight on the wheel, every mile farther from Seattle making him feel both safer and more isolated. In the back seat, Emily sat quietly with Luna pressed to her chest.
The baby hadn't crié once.
Hadn't whimpered. But her eyes never closed, and that fact gnawed at the edge of Emily's nerves. Sometimes she felt those dark, knowing eyes staring not just at her, but through her. As if Luna remembered things her mother had never lived. They arrived at the cabin just before dusk. It was an old hunting lodge Ethan's college roommate had inherited but never used.
2 stories, wooden beam, no internet, no cell réception.
A fireplace in the main room and solar panels installed for minimal power. Remote enough to vanish.
Qui est neuf to your own yard bea.
As they unpacked, Sarah set up her equipment in a back room, a neuroscanner, some portable EEG pads, and a journal already half filled with scribbled thoughts. She had brought a flash drive filled with Dr. Adrian Walker's old papers, scavenged from corners of the internet and academic leaks, unconfirmed, but compelling. They began that night. Luna was placed on a soft mat, EEG pads gently attached to her scalp. Sarah turned on the scanner, and Ethan stood over her shoulder watching the live feedback. "What exactly are we looking for?" he asked. "Patterns.
Cluster.
Anything that resembles pre-language neural pathways or memory reconsolidation signals. In a newborn, those would be minimal. With her." Sarah trailed off as the screen lit up. Clusters fired across the frontal lobe. Sharp, rhythmic spikes, too consistent, too patterned for chance. Ethan had seen hundreds of neonatal scans.
Non like this. She's processing information, Sarah whispered.
Not instinctively. Deliberately. Emily stood nearby, arms folded tight. But what does that mean? Sarah turned to her, hesitating. It means she might be remembering. The next morning, Ethan took a walk down the wooded path behind the cabin. The air was biting, and the mist clung low to the ground. He needed space to think. He was a man of science, of facts and observations. But everything about Luna defied classification. And then there was the name.
Adrian.
He couldn't ignore it. That night, after Emily and Luna had gone to sleep, Ethan opened Sarah's folder of documents. It included a transcription of an interview between Adrian Walker and an anonymous science journalist, dated 3 months before the fire. In it, Walker spoke of neural resonance and consciousness encoding. He described the brain as a receiver, not a generator, of consciousness. According to his theory, the right conditions could allow a pattern of consciousness to imprint on developing fetal neural architecture. Essentially, memory transfer.
Life after life.
But more chilling was the final line of the transcript.
If he die, and she survive, she will remember me.
Ethan stared at it for a long time. The next day, Sarah conducted a vocal recognition test. She recorded simple sentences in various tones and languages, then played them back to Luna while tracking her EEG responses. Most voices produced minimal reaction. But when she played a restored audio clip of Adrian Walker's 2009 TED-style presentation, his actual voice, Luna's readings spiked. The baby blinked rapidly, clenched her hands. Then she whispered a word. "Fire." The room went silent.
Emily stepped forward.
"Did she just?" "Yes," Sarah said. "She said fire." Ethan glanced at the EEG. The brain waves had changed. Faster, more chaotic. Luna's breathing sped up. Her eyes darted around the room, as if seeing something they couldn't. Then came a phrase. Barely audible, but clear. They locked the lab. He was still inside. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Sarah dropped her pen.
Ethan crouched next to Luna.
Who was inside, Luna? Who was still inside? The baby didn't answer. Her eyes closed. She fell asleep. For the first time, she slept deeply. Sarah looked stunned. That sounded like a memory. A vivid one, Ethan said. Not just an echo. A reliving.
Emily stepped back, shaken.
That fire killed 6 people. It was ruled an accident. An electrical fault. But if someone was locked inside... Then it wasn't an accident, Sarah finished. They spent the next several hours replaying the recording, documenting every phrase Luna had whispered, comparing it to reports from the Walker Institute fire. They found inconsistencies, details that were never public.
The name of the hallway.
The phrase secondary containment doors. Specifics no one outside the institute could have known. Unless they had been there. That night, Ethan reviewed the hospital security footage again. The man in the black coat who had appeared outside the NICU. He still hadn't been identified.
No hospital entry log. No badge scan.
No trace of his presence. But in the cabin, far from the city's reach, another fear crept in. Luna had not just inherited knowledge. She had inherited enemies. If someone had known Walker's project had succeeded, if they believed that knowledge now lived in Luna, they would come for her. Not to study. Not to understand. To silence. Ethan pulled Sarah aside. We need to move again. To where? A place even more remote. Somewhere no one would think to look. Sarah nodded. I'll start packing. But when they returned to the main room, Emily was already holding Luna, her bag packed. She looked at them with tired, determined eyes. You saw what she said. You heard it. Whatever she is, whoever she was, she's not safe here. Ethan agreed. But as they opened the front door, something stopped them. A noise. Soft.
Hollow.
Like wood shifting under weight. Sarah held up a hand. Do you hear that? Footsteps. Outside. Creeping along the side of the cabin. Then, a knock.
Trislo knock at the front door.
Not loud. But deliberate.
Ethan stepped forward, atracing.
He looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just trees. Then a voice. Calm. Measured. Male.
We know she's here. Silence. You're not the only ones who remember Adrian Walker.
The cabin fell into a silence so heavy it pressed against the walls. Outside, wind stirred the trees but could not mask the tension in the room. Ethan stepped back from the door, his eyes fixed on the handle as if it might turn on its own. No one spoke.
No one breathed too loud.
Then the voice came again, muffled by wood and distance, but unmistakably calm. You don't understand what she carries. What she remembers could change everything, or destroy it. Sarah moved first. She crossed the room in 3 steps, pulled Luna from Emily's arms and motioned toward the back door. Emily hesitated, clinging to her bag and her breath, before following. Ethan waited until he heard the creak of the back door opening and closing before he turned toward the front again.
Another knock. This time, softer.
We're not here to hurt her, the voice said. But we can't let her leave. Then footsteps retreated. Ethan waited. He opened the door slowly.
No one stood outside.
But at the edge of the porch in the wet wood was a USB drive in a sealed plastic bag. He bent down, picked it up, turned it in his fingers.
No marking. Just a standard black drive.
Behind him, Sarah hissed through the back door. We need to go. Now. Ethan nodded, pocketed the drive, and followed.
They drove through the night.
No lights. No music.
No question.
Just road and wind and Luna's quiet breathing in the back seat. By dawn, they reached a storage unit facility 2 towns over. It wasn't much, but Ethan had rented a private unit a year ago, originally to store old medical equipment. Now, it would be their makeshift lab. Inside, they set up as best they could. Folded tables. A backup generator. Sarah's laptop and neuro equipment. It wasn't sterile, but it was safe. For now. Ethan handed her the USB.
Someone left this.
Sarah stared at it. You're going to plug in a mystery drive? Not on a networked computer, he said. He opened his bag and pulled out an old offline laptop.
No Wi-Fi. No port open.
Just power and a screen. They sat together as the files loaded. Inside the drive were folders labeled in strings of alphanumerics, but one caught Sarah's eye immediately, W_mind map.
She clicked it open.
A 3D model appeared on the screen. A rotating neural map, complex, full of layered nodes and floating data strings.
In the center of it all, a pulse. A single point blinking like a heartbeat.
That's not just data, Sarah murmured. That's a consciousness map. Ethan leaned in. You mean, it's him? No, she said. But it's everything he was trying to store. Thoughts. Memories.
Trauma.
The structure of identity itself. How is that even possible? Sarah didn't answer right away. She clicked through subfolders, scanning labels, primary encoding, transfer protocol, fetal implantation logs. She clicked another file. An audio log played. This is Adrian Walker, said the voice. If you're hearing this, I'm likely dead. Or worse. But that doesn't mean it's over. Ethan's spine straightened. They'll say it was an accident. That the lab failed. But I've hidden the code where they can't reach it. In her.
My doctor.
She was born with a rare EEG pattern.
A resonance match.
I used it. God help me, I used it. But not to save myself. to preserve what they wanted to erase.
The audio cut out. Sarah exhaled.
He did it. He transferred himself. Not his full consciousness, but the memories.
The structure.
Into his daughter.
And now, into Luna.
Sarah turned to Ethan. We're not looking at a strange child. We're looking at a vessel. One that carries everything Walker knew, maybe everything the Institute was trying to bury. Emily had been standing behind them, silent until now. And that's why they're hunting her. Because if she remembers enough, she could expose them. Ethan nodded. More than expose. She could destroy them. Sarah pulled up the neural map again, rotating it slowly. There's something else. See that blinking point? It's not static.
It's moving.
Ethan squinted. What does that mean? It's alive, she whispered. The map is reacting to inputs. Almost like it's learning. They ran another scan on Luna. As Sarah placed the EEG sensors, Luna opened her eyes and looked at Ethan. Calm.
Direct.
Then she spoke. I remember the codes.
The words weren't loud.
They didn't echo. But they landed in the room like thunder. Sarah froze.
Ethan crouched down. What code, Luna? She blinked slowly.
The ones they used to lock the lab.
The override string. The back door.
Emily knelt beside them, tears in her eyes.
Sweetheart, what are you trying to tell us?
Luna reached for Ethan's hand. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his index finger and squeezed. Don't let them burn it again, she said.
Silence.
Then Sarah stood abruptly. We need to upload this. Get it out. No, Ethan said. We can't just dump it online. If the Institute's watching, they'll pull it down in seconds, and trace us. But we can't hold on to it either, she argued. We need a third party. Someone who'll know what to do with it. Whistleblower forums. Academic watchdogs. Ethan considered that. Or the press.
Sarah narrowed her eyes.
You think they believe a story about a baby reincarnating her scientist father and carrying his memory map in her brain? Not yet, he admitted. But if we give them the data, the codes, the files, they won't need to believe. The truth will force them to. But as they spoke, none of them noticed the small red light blinking faintly on a nearby box, one that hadn't blinked before. A tracker. It had activated the moment they inserted the drive. And miles away, in a black SUV parked on a hillside overlooking the town, a man in a gray suit received a ping on his screen. He smiled. Then picked up his phone. Target located.
The realization hit Sarah like a punch to the chest.
She stared at the small blinking light on the equipment box, the red pulse steady and slow, too deliberate to be accidental. We're compromised, she whispered. Ethan followed her gaze, his body already tensing. What is that? A low-frequency GPS beacon, she said, voice tightening.
Someone embedded a tracker.
Probably embedded in the USB drive. He didn't ask how she knew that. Her years consulting on tech security for military psychops were enough of an explanation. Ethan stood quickly. They're coming. Sarah ripped the EEG sensors off Luna and began stuffing equipment into a duffel bag. Emily instinctively clutched her daughter closer, rocking her gently, as if her own heartbeat could shield the child. Ethan opened the back door of the storage unit. The sun was setting behind a haze of clouds, casting everything in dull gold. There was no one in sight yet, but the world felt different. Tighter.
Like juste before a thunderstorm.
We've got 15 minutes at most, Sarah said. If that. Emily looked at them both. Where do we go? There's a service tunnel under the hill, Ethan replied.
Maintenance access.
Not on maps. I used it during an emergency response drill years ago. It leads to a ranger station 2 miles out. Sarah didn't question it. She slung the bag over her shoulder. Let's go. They moved fast, Ethan leading the way along the back of the storage complex. The tunnel entrance was covered by a rusted grate, half concealed by weeds. Ethan yanked it open, revealing a narrow stairwell leading down into darkness. Careful, he said. It'll be tight. They descended one by one, their footsteps echoing off damp concrete. The tunnel was old and smelled of rust and mold.
A single bulb flickered from above, casting long shadow along the walls.
Luna was quiet in her mother's arms, but her eyes were wide. Alert. Watching. They had barely made it 20 yards into the tunnel when Ethan heard it. Engines. Multiple. The sharp screech of tires outside. He turned to Sarah.
We're out of time.
Sarah nodded, pulling a small device from her pocket, an EMP pulse grenade, designed to fry short-range electronics. Military grade. Something she never should have had, and Ethan never would have expected. She pressed the button, tossed it up the stairwell, and closed the grate behind them. The blast was silent, but the flickering bulb above their heads went dead. The red light on the tracker stopped blinking. Buy us 10 minutes, she muttered. They kept moving.
The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder.
At times, Ethan had to crouch to keep moving. But eventually, they reached the exit, a locked metal door, rusted around the hinges. Ethan braced himself and kicked. Once. Twice. On the third kick, the door flew open with a groan. Cool mountain air rushed in. They emerged behind a ranger station nestled into a ridge, long abandoned, overgrown with ivy. No power. No heat. But walls and a roof. It would do. They barricaded the entrance and collapsed on the floor, lungs heaving. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Luna spoke. Not a cry. Not a babble. A sentence. They're coming from the east. Sarah stared at her. How do you know that? Luna looked straight at her. Because that's where they always came from. Emily clutched her tighter. She's not guessing, Sarah said. She's remembering. Ethan stood up, paced the room, mind spinning. We need to contact someone.
A journaliste.
A scientist. Anyone who'll listen. We have the data, the files.
No, Sarah interrupted.
We can't upload from here. We can't risk them intercepting. But if we had physical delivery, somewhere public. Ethan snapped his fingers. The university.
Professor Harris.
He runs the Ethics and Neuro Research Division at UW. He was Adrian's colleague. He'll know what to do. Sarah nodded. We get the files to him. But we don't go ourselves. We send it with someone else. I'll go, Emily said. Ethan turned to her.
It's too dangerous.
You have Luna. That's why I should go, she said firmly. They're watching for you. For Sarah. But me? I'm just a mother.
No one is looking for me. Notif is separate from you now.
The silence that followed was heavier than any before. Sarah handed her the USB drive and a burner phone. There's a public library 3 towns over. Use their Wi-Fi.
No name.
No ID. Send the files to Harris directly. Then disappear. Emily nodded, tears forming. She kissed Luna's forehead, whispering something only her daughter could hear. Then she slipped into the trees and was gone. Hours passed. Ethan and Sarah took turns watching the ridge, waiting for signs of movement. The woods remained quiet. Luna slept in Ethan's arms for the first time since she was born. It was deep, dreamless sleep. Then, close to dawn, the burner phone buzzed. Sarah answered. Emily's voice was low but calm. He got it. Harris.
Y'en did it of myself.
He's scared, but he understands. And you? I'm fine. I left the town already.
Going south. You'll keep moving. What about Luna?
There was a pause. Then Emily said, Tell her I'll be waiting. Sarah ended the call. For the first time in days, Ethan smiled. But it didn't last. The sky outside was growing lighter, but the sound of a helicopter broke through the peace.
A black rotorcraft flying low over the ridge. No marking. No navigation lights.
Sarah and Ethan looked at each other. They're still searching, she said. They won't stop, Ethan agreed. He looked down at Luna. She was awake again. And she was watching the sky. The sound of the helicopter faded, leaving a hollow silence in its wake. Trees swayed gently in the early morning light, but the tension in the old ranger station remained sharp. Ethan stood at the window, barely breathing, eyes scanning the sky for any sign of return. They're mapping the area, Sarah said behind him.
Wide sweep.
Looking for heat signatures. They'll find this place if we stay too long. Ethan nodded. We won't. We'll move tonight. Luna sat on a folded blanket near the corner, gazing at the boarded window as if she too had been tracking the aircraft. She didn't cry, didn't speak, but something in her expression had shifted. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was waiting.
Sarah knelt besides. You feel it, don't you? She whispered.
You know they're getting closer. Luna turned to her, blinking slowly. Then very softly she said, he's coming.
Sarah stiffened.
Who? But Luna said nothing more. By late afternoon, the temperature had dropped. Clouds thickened above the treetops, and a faint drizzle began to fall. Ethan scavenged dry wood from a collapsed shed nearby, building a fire in the small stone fireplace. They needed warmth. They needed a distraction. As the flames flickered, Sarah unfolded one of Adrian Walker's scanned notebooks. The pages were warped, the handwriting jagged and rushed. But certain entries had been underlined with thick red ink. She read aloud. If the transfer is successful, the mind may not reassemble immediately. It will manifest in fragments, dreams, reflexes, linguistic slips. But over time, with exposure to familiar triggers, memories may coalesce. Ethan looked up from the fire. We've seen that. She's remembering more every day. Sarah nodded.
It means we are running out of time.
Once Luna starts connecting all the fragments, she'll become more than a vessel. She'll become a witness. And that makes her dangerous. Ethan turned toward Luna.
Dangereux tout homme.
Before Sarah could answer, a new sound interrupted them.
Tricknock.
Slow.
Deliberate. Coming from the front door.
They froze. Ethan rose silently, glancing at Sarah. She moved toward Luna and lifted the baby into her arms, holding her close. Ethan stepped forward, keeping his back to the wall as he approached the door.
The knocking came again. Tricknock.
Exactly the same rhythm as before. He reached the door, pressed his eye to the peephole. No one.
Just the tree-line and mist.
Then, a voice. Calm, but colder than the last time. Dr. Cole. You're making this harder than it has to be. Ethan didn't reply. The voice continued.
We don't want to harm the child.
But she carries something that belongs to us. We will recover it. One way or another. Ethan felt something shift in the air, an unspoken threat that stretched beyond violence. Sarah appeared beside him, her voice low. Whoever that is, they're not bluffing. Ethan whispered, we need an exit. We're out of exits, she replied. We either face them or disappear. Suddenly, Luna stirred in her arms. She reached one hand toward the door and whispered, he's outside. But he won't come in.
Ethan blinked.
Why not? Luna closed her eyes. Because he's afraid. Sarah exchanged a glance with Ethan. Afraid of her? Ethan turned the bolt on the door and opened it a crack. The man outside was tall, dressed in a tailored gray coat, black gloves, no visible weapon. His face was pale, angular, eyes cold and analytical. He smiled when he saw Ethan.
Good evening.
Ethan didn't return the courtesy.
Who are you?
I represent those who are invested in the safety of this country, and in maintaining certain boundaries.
You mean secret? The man smiled widened.
You've read Walker's work. You know what he attempted. Do you understand the risk of letting that knowledge out? Ethan stood firm. I understand the risk of hiding it. The man tilted his head. This child is not what she appears. Her existence challenges the foundation of identity, of ethics, of national security. She is a breach. Ethan clenched his jaw.
She's a child. No, the man said. She's a prototype.
And we cannot allow her to continue. Something in Ethan snapped. He pushed the door open fully, stepping into the threshold. She is not your property. The man's eyes flicked past him, toward the room behind. You don't understand what's at stake. Then explain it. The man didn't blink. If she unlocks the full structure, others will follow.
Consciousness transfer. Intellectual immortality. Man's unthread from body.
And worse, minds implanted into vessels against their will. It's not just science fiction, Dr. Cole. It's an arms race.
Ethan shook his head.
Then the problem isn't her. It's the people who would use her. The man's voice dropped lower. Do you think hiding her will protect her? We already know where she is. And the people who sent me won't be as patient. He handed Ethan a black envelope. Inside is a number.
Call it when you're ready to talk.
But make no mistake. This ends soon. Then he turned and walked into the forest, vanishing within seconds.
Ethan closed the door. Sarah exhaled.
They won't stop. No, Ethan agreed. They won't. Behind them, Luna opened her eyes. She remembers more now, Sarah said. The way she spoke, her vocabulary, her tone, it's evolving.
Ethan sat down, staring at the fire.
What if she becomes someone else entirely? She won't, Sarah replied.
She's not just Adrian.
She's Luna too. That's what they don't understand. Ethan looked at the black envelope, unopened in his hand. They'll try to break us. Sarah nodded. Then we don't break. They held their breath as the wind outside picked up, rattling the shutters.
Somewhere beyond the trees, the visitor was gone.
But his warning still lingered. And Luna, nestled between them, whispered a word they'd never taught her. Trust. By dawn, the fire in the cabin had burned low. Sarah stirred the embers, coaxing out warmth, while Ethan sat at the table with the black envelope still unopened before him. The paper was heavier than it should have been, as if it carried not only ink and message but consequence. He hadn't touched it since the man in grey left. But he hadn't thrown it away either. Luna was sleeping, truly sleeping, her chest rising and falling in a rhythm that, under normal circumstances, might have been comforting. But Ethan couldn't help but feel it wasn't sleep in the usual sense. It was preparation. Sarah walked over, holding 2 mugs of instant coffee. She handed him one. She's changing, she said softly. Ethan nodded. Every day. I don't think it's just memory. I think she's integrating. He looked at her.
Integrating.
Think of it like software. Her brain's the hardware, right? Adrian's data, the mind map, the voice patterns, the neural pathways, it's the program. But the program needs time to settle, to learn how to run on new infrastructure. That's what's happening. The pieces are locking into place. Ethan glanced toward Luna. What happens when the last piece connects? Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she opened her laptop, carefully recharging off a portable solar bank. She brought up the mind map they'd retrieved from the USB, Adrian Walker's final schematic. The 3D model spun slowly, as if aware of its own significance. The central node, the blinking pulse, had grown brighter since they'd first seen it. It's reacting to her EEG recordings, Sarah explained. Somehow, this file is live. Or at least adaptive.
Ethan leaned closer. Était-ce impossible? Not anymore.
She tapped on the central node. A hidden file prompt opened. Enter vocal key to access. They stared at the screen. Ethan frowned. We don't have the key. Sarah looked at Luna. Maybe we do. They waited until Luna stirred. Sarah picked her up gently and brought her to the table. The child blinked at the screen, then at Ethan. Without prompting, Luna said softly, override protocol.
Autorisation, Walker. Vocal key, restore memory integrity, séquence 0. The laptop beeped.
The file unlocked. Dozens of new folders cascaded across the screen. Video logs.
Encrypted document. Audio recording.
Ethan opened one labeled, Final Confession. Adrian's face appeared, gaunt and tired, eyes sunken but sharp. If you're watching this, then the upload worked. I wasn't supposed to live long enough to see this part. But if Luna speaks, if she remembers, then there's still time. He looked straight into the camera, as though looking through it. You need to understand something. The Institute didn't want memory transfer to save lives. They wanted it to create obedience.
Soldier without hesitation. Programmable loyalty.
We were so close to cracking it. But then I saw what it would become. He paused. I hid the final sequence in Luna because she was the only safe place left. Her brain was young enough, plastic enough, and I had no choice. They killed everyone else. The video ended. Sarah closed the laptop gently. Silence fell between them. So that's it, Ethan said finally. They want the code not to stop some disaster, but to finish building it. Sarah nodded. And she's the last fragment. Ethan stood up and walked to the window.
Outside, the trees swayed under a rising wind.
What if we release this? He asked. All of it. The files. The mind map.
The confession.
What happens then? They'll deny it, Sarah said. Try to discredit her. Us. But it'll be out there. People will start asking questions. And once people start asking questions, things begin to unravel. Ethan turned back toward Luna. She was watching him again. Her eyes were darker now. Not because they'd changed, but because there was more behind them. More knowing. More memory. She reached out her hand. Dad, she said. The word stopped him cold. He knelt beside her. What did you say? She placed her hand on his cheek, not with the uncertainty of a child, but with the gentle familiarity of someone who had done it before. You were his friend, she said softly.
Et trusted you.
Tears threatened to rise, but Ethan held them back. He didn't ask how she knew. He didn't ask what part of her was Luna and what part was Adrian. He just nodded. Yes. He was brilliant. And stubborn. And scared.
She smiled, small, almost imperceptible.
He loved me, she said. Ethan choked on the silence. Yes, he whispered. More than anything. The moment passed. The room returned. Sarah was already preparing the files for extraction. She copied them to 3 encrypted drives, labeling them with random file names. They would send them through separate couriers, across different networks, different states. Redundancy. Insurance. That night, Ethan walked outside to think.
Star blinked above the treetop.
Cold wind bit at his skin. He didn't hear the footsteps until they were too close. A shadow moved between the trees. Ethan froze. Then a voice. Dr. Cole. It wasn't the man from before. It was a woman.
She stepped into the moonlight, tall, lean, dressed in black.
Her face was unreadable. You've made it further than we expected, she said. Ethan didn't move.
Who are you? Someone who used to believe in Adrian Walker.
Until he betrayed us all. Ethan's fists clenched. He didn't betray anyone. He protected his daughter. The woman smiled faintly. Then why did he leave her with the codes? You think he was trying to save her? Or use her? He stepped forward. You don't get to rewrite his story. She tilted her head. Neither do you. That child is a weapon now. Whether she knows it or not. And weapons draw war. Ethan didn't respond. You should know, the woman added, they've already activated the secondary team. You have less than 12 hours. Then she vanished into the woods, quiet as mist. Ethan returned to the cabin. Luna was awake again. She looked up at him and said, We're almost ready. He sat beside her. Ready for what? He asked. Luna didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned against his chest, closed her eyes, and whispered.
Tout remember everything.
The woods were darker than usual that night. Even the moon, full and pale, did little to pierce the density of the clouds rolling in from the north. The trees leaned closer together, as if nature itself were holding its breath. Inside the cabin, Ethan, Sarah, and Luna sat around the last remaining battery-powered lantern. The laptop was shut. The drives were packed. The decision had been made. They had to run. Sarah zipped the last of the files into a military-grade storage case. Each drive is now mirrored in 3 locations, she said. If we split up, at least one of us might make it.
Ethan glanced toward the window, where the forest stared back in silence.
They said we had less than 12 hours. That was 6 ago. They'll be here soon, Sarah replied. We don't have the firepower to stop them. He looked at Luna, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor. She was humming softly, a tune that neither Ethan nor Sarah recognized, yet it felt familiar, like an echo from a dream. She's still evolving, Sarah said, not hiding the awe in her voice. The way she speaks, the way she listens. She's not just remembering anymore.
She's understanding. Ethan sat beside
Luna, he said gently. You told me you were almost ready. What did you mean? She stopped humming and looked at him with those ancient eyes too deep for a child who had barely lived a week. I know where they're going, she said. Ethan frowned. Who? The others, she said.
The ones like me.
They're not born yet. But they will be. They're preparing the next generation.
Sarah stepped closer. You mean the institute?
Luna nodded. They failed with me. But they'll try again. They'll erase identity. Turn memory into obedience. They'll build children who don't remember who they are, just who they're told to be. Ethan's stomach turned. And you? You're the proof they succeeded once. I'm the proof they couldn't control it, she replied. He looked at Sarah. If what she says is true, this is bigger than we thought. This isn't about one child. It's a blueprint for control. Then we stop running, Sarah said. We fight. Ethan shook his head. We're not equipped. But we have something they don't, she said. Her. Sarah crouched in front of Luna. You said you're ready. Is there something you can show us? Something that can help? Luna hesitated, then reached for the backpack. From inside, she pulled out one of the encrypted drives. This one, she said. It's the key. To what? To where it all began. Ethan opened the drive on the offline laptop. A single file appeared, a video, time-stamped 1 week before the fire that destroyed the Walker Institute. They pressed play. Adrian Walker appeared on screen. He stood in front of a large neural interface, one Ethan recognized from old research photos. His eyes were tired, his posture tense, but his voice was steady. I've made a mistake, he said. This project was never supposed to become a weapon. It was meant to preserve identity, to defeat death, not remake it. He turned the camera toward the interface. This system, Project Echo, stores entire cognitive sequences. Not just memory. Personality.
Intuition. Instinct.
If replicated, it could rewrite a human mind. He paused. I'm shutting it down. But I fear someone else has already made copies. If you're watching this, you have to find the central node. The place where the seed data was stored. They'll rebuild from there. The screen went black. Ethan looked at Sarah. He buried the location inside the file. Coordinates. It's possible. But the moment we move, they'll find us, she said. They're probably already tracking our heat signature. Drones. Ground teams. Ethan took a breath. Then we don't wait for them to knock.
We leave now.
They moved quickly. Within 10 minutes, they had packed what they needed. The rest they left behind. Equipment. Bedding. Food.
All distraction.
Outside, the wind had shifted. A faint rumble of engines echoed through the trees. They're here, Sarah said. They moved into the forest, Luna wrapped tight in Ethan's jacket, her arms around his neck. She said nothing, but her head rested against his shoulder like she knew the weight of what was coming. They didn't take the main path. Instead, Sarah led them through the underbrush, using military escape routes she'd memorized long ago. No lights. No sound.
Only the rhythm of feet and breath and fear.
Half a mile in, they heard voices behind them. Not loud. Not close. But confident. Ethan pushed faster. They crossed a small ravine, scaled a ridge, and finally reached a clearing where the old Ranger Jeep had been hidden, something Ethan had parked days before, just in case. As he started the engine, Luna whispered, "They're not following." Ethan frowned.
How do you know?
She looked up at him, a slight smile forming. Because I changed the signal.
What signal? The beacon.
They were tracking the decoy we left behind.
Sarah blinked.
You did that. I remembered how, Luna said.
Adrian talked me. The engine roared to life.
They sped through the trees, down dirt roads slick with rain, toward the location buried in the final file. Toward the node. But it wasn't over. As they neared the outskirts of a nearby town, their headlights caught movement ahead. A blockade. 2 SUVs.
Men in tactical gear.
Ethan slammed the brakes. Sarah reached for the gearshift. Reverse. Now. But before they could move, a spotlight ignited from the trees. Dr. Cole, a voice called.
You don't need to run anymore.
We already have what we need. Ethan looked at Sarah, confused. What does that mean? Then he turned to Luna. She was still. Too still. Luna, he whispered. She opened her eyes. And said, It's okay. I sent it.
Ethan blinked.
Sent what? Luna smiled. All of it. While you were sleeping.
Sarah stared.
You had access? Luna nodded.
Adrian left me the falsaf.
The moment the mind map was whole, it triggered. Ethan could hardly breathe. So they don't want you now?
No, Luna said softly.
They want revenge.
The voice outside called again. This is your final warning.
Ethan reached for Sarah's hand. They had no more secrets to protect. Only each other. The moment stretched, heavy with inevitability. In the clearing ahead, the blockade remained motionless. No shots fired, no sudden movement, just the presence of power, cold and absolute.
The spotlight glared through the windshield, casting long shadow across Ethan's face.
In the back seat, Luna was quiet, her eyes half-lidded, her breathing even. Sarah looked over from the passenger seat. If we try to run, they'll take us down. Ethan's grip on the wheel tightened. But if we surrender, we lose her. No, Luna said from behind them. Her voice, small and still, carried more weight than any command. Ethan turned. What do you mean? She's already gone, Luna replied. The Luna they're looking for, the one with the codes, the maps, the data, I sent her away. Sarah's brow furrowed. You mean, you transferred the files? Luna nodded. To the cloud. Encrypted, distributed across thousands of microservers, all set on delayed public release. They can't stop it anymore. It's already spreading. Ethan turned his eyes back to the blockade. Then why are they still here? Because they don't care about stopping the truth, Sarah said quietly. They care about punishing the ones who released it. The engine idled, purring low. Then Luna said, we end it here.
Ethan glanced at her.
What do you mean, end it? I remember the final command, she said.
Adrian's last line of code.
It wasn't just for storage. It was for release and self-erasure. Sarah's head snapped toward her.
Self-erasure?
Luna, you're talking about deleting the imprint. Luna nodded. Everything that's not mine. His memories. His voice. His influence. I can remove it. And become only me.
Ethan's briscogged.
But, we'll lose Adrian forever.
Luna made sighs.
You never really had him. You had a ghost. Now you have me. Sarah whispered, are you sure? Luna placed her palm over her chest. I'm tired of carrying what doesn't belong to me.
You want to be free.
Ethan swallowed hard. Then he reached back and took her hand in his. Then be free. Luna closed her eyes.
For a moment, nothing happened.
Then the air shifted. Not in temperature, not in pressure, something deeper, more primal. Like the earth holding its breath. Luna's body stiffened slightly, her head tilting upward, lips moving soundlessly. Her eyelids fluttered. Her fingers curled. And then...
Silence. Allons, hollow silence.
Followed by...
A single tear rolling down her cheek.
Ethan turned fully in his seat.
Luna?
She opened her eyes. And for the first time, she looked like a child. Unburdened. Confused.
Alive. Sarah leaned closer. Can you hear me? Luna blinked.
Where are we?
Ethan exhaled.
We're safe. You're safe. She frowned.
He had dream.
But I don't remember them. Sarah smiled, though her eyes glistened. That's okay. Behind them, the spotlight dimmed. The voice returned, now sharper.
Laisse patient. This is your final warning. Step out with the child.
No more delays. Ethan reached for the door handle. Sarah grabbed his arm. Are you sure?
No.
But if we stay, they'll hurt her. If we go, maybe they won't. He stepped out into the clearing. Sarah followed, Luna in her arms, wrapped in Ethan's jacket. The men at the blockade raised their weapons, but didn't fire. One figure stepped forward.
The man in the grey coat.
The same calm eyes, the same surgical precision in his movements. You've wasted everyone's time, Dr. Cole, he said flatly. Where is the data? Gone, Ethan replied. Released.
You're too late.
The man looked at Luna.
And the child. Sarah stepped forward. She's clean.
She erased the imprint.
She's not a threat anymore.
The man narrowed his eyes. You expect us to believe that? Test her, Ethan said. Scan her.
Whatever you need.
But she's just a child now. The man paused, then signaled to his team. One of the soldiers approached with a handheld scanner. Sarah held Luna tight but didn't resist.
The scanner whirred softly. Lights flickered. A small green display pulsed.
Then turned blue. Nothing on the neural lattice, the soldier said. No imprint detected. Just baseline brain activity.
The man in grey said nothing.
His jaw worked slightly. His fingers twitched once. Then he turned to Ethan. You've disrupted a process years in the making. You've humiliated powerful people. Ethan held his gaze. I can live with that. The man nodded once. Then he walked away. The soldiers followed, melting into the darkness. The vehicles turned and rolled out, tires crunching gravel, tail lights vanishing behind the trees. Within minutes, they were alone. Ethan stood motionless, still half expecting gunfire. But none came.
Sarah exhaled.
That was it. Ethan walked over and took Luna back in his arms. She curled against his chest, sleepy again. That was the end, he said.
No, Sarah corrected, smiling.
That was the beginning. 3 months later, spring arrived in soft waves of green and gold. Somewhere far from the cities and the cameras, a modest farmhouse sat between tall oaks and a quiet stream. Luna, now nearly 6 months old, laughed in the sunlight as she sat in a patch of grass, babbling to a butterfly that refused to fly away. Ethan leaned against the porch railing, watching her. Sarah stepped beside him, 2 mugs of tea in her hands. She doesn't remember any of it, she said. No, Ethan agreed. But sometimes I wonder if some part of Adrian still lingers. In her smile. In the way she observes. Sarah looked at him. Would that be a bad thing?
Ethan shook his head. Not anymore.
They watched Luna crawl toward a tiny cluster of daisies. She plucked one, stared at it for a moment, then held it up as if offering it to the world. She's starting over, Sarah said softly. Ethan smiled. So are we.
In the distance, a bird sang.
A breeze passed through the trees. And for the first time in a long while, the world felt light.